would be a good idea. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Bala Girivanadhari Gopi Jana Bala Girivanadhari Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Bonachari Yamuna Tira Bonachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrakacharya Astadada Satasisi Mad Abhay Charnar Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrakacharya Astadada Satasisi Mad Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinata Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminichi Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paska Chadi Shatarine. We don't have a verse up, but I will just read what we have. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So actually we're not reading in Srimad Bhagavatam today, we're reading from Caitanya Charitamrita. Madhya Lila, chapter 11, text 100. Krishna Varnam Trisa Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Yagyai Sankirtana Prayur Yajantihi Sumedasa Krishna Varnam Trisa Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Yagyai Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Hi Sumedasa. Gentlemen, would you like to recite? Yeah. Krishna Varnam Sisa Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Yagyai Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Sumedasa. It's kind of not fair. If you don't know it by heart, you won't have anything to look at. Does anybody else would like to have a go? Can you? Okay. Sango Pangastra Parsadam Yagyai Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Sumedasa. Anybody else? Ladies? Nope. Okay. Krishna Varnam. Repeating the syllables Krishna. Trisha. With a luster. Akrishnam. Not black. Golden. Golden. Sangha. Along with associates. Upanga. Servitors. Astra. Weapons. Parshadam, confidential companions. Yagyai, by sacrifice. Sankirtana Prayai, consisting chiefly of congregational chanting. Yajanti, they worship. He, certainly. Sumedasa, intelligent persons. Translation. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. Please repeat. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. purport. For explanation of this verse, refer to Adi Lila chapter 3, verse 52. So I went there, and it's the same verse, and it has now a purport. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained this verse in his commentary on the Bhagavatam known as Krama Sandarbha, wherein he says that Lord Krishna also appears with a golden complexion. That golden Lord Krishna is Lord Caitanya, who is worshipped by intelligent men in this age. That is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam by Garga Muni, who said that although the child Krishna was blackish, he also appears in 3 other colors, red, white, and yellow. He exhibited his white and red complexions in the Satya and Treta ages respectively. He did not exhibit the remaining color yellow gold until he appeared as Lord Caitanya, who is known as Gaurahari. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that Krishna Varna means Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Krishna Varna and Krishna Chaitanya are equivalent. The name Krishna appears with both Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya Krishna. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he always engages in describing Krishna and thus enjoys transcendental bliss by chanting and remembering his name and form. Lord Krishna himself appears as Lord Chaitanya to preach the highest gospel. Prabhupada explains that Lord Chaitanya always chants the holy name of Krishna and describes it also, and because he is Krishna himself, whoever meets him will automatically chant the holy name of Krishna and later describe it to others. He injects one with transcendental Krishna consciousness, which merges the chanter in transcendental bliss. In all respects, therefore, he appears before everyone as Krishna, either by personality or by sound. Simply by seeing Lord Chaitanya, one at once remembers Lord Krishna. One may therefore accept him as Vishnu Tattva. In other words, Lord Chaitanya is Lord Krishna himself. Sangopangastra Parshadam further indicates that Lord Chaitanya is Lord Krishna. His body is always decorated with ornaments of sandalwood and with sandalwood paste. By his super excellent beauty, he subdues all the people of the age. In other descents, the Lord sometimes used weapons to defeat the demons, but in this age the Lord subdues them with his all-attractive figure as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that his beauty is his astra, or his weapon, to subdue the demons. Because he is all-attractive, it is to be understood that all the demigods lived with him as his companions. His acts were uncommon, and his associates were wonderful. So this is a really important point that Prabhupada's making here, in that the Lord's beauty is his weapon. In previous ages, you might kill the demons. We have so many wonderful stories, but in this age, it's his beauty that's attracting. And it's his way of subduing the demons. So Krishna doesn't force us to love him. He actually attracts us and inspires us to love him. So I've always struggled with this term demon. That has always been a trigger for me, to call somebody a demon. When I think of this word demon, it comes to mind some monster with fangs and fiery eyes, like the devil in the Christian tradition, where you have a tail and a prong on the end. So I struggled with that when I first came to the Hare Krishna movement. And then I found this nice little dialogue between Prabhupada and some of his disciples in Hayagriva's Hare Krishna Explosion. Maybe you've read that book. It's an old book, but it's a really good little book. And so I've lifted out some of that dialogue where Janaki Dasi, who is actually the former wife of Mukunda Maharaj, who's living here, she says to Srila Prabhupada, "But there's no such demons now, right, Srila Prabhupada?" And Prabhupada says, "Oh yes, demon means non-devotee." And then Kirtananda says, "Well, maybe we shouldn't call them demons. People will never come if we call them demons." And then Prabhupada says, "But they are demons. If you're not a devotee, well, you're a demon." Then Kirtananda persists. He says, "Well, aren't most people somewhere in between? And Prabhupada says, in between means demon. And Kirtananda says, but most people never heard of Krishna. How can they be called demons? And then Prabhupada says, well, everyone's heard of God. Krishna is God. Anyway, they might be innocent, and therefore we are informing them. But actually, because they're here in this material world, they're not really innocent. Somehow, they've chosen to forget Krishna and are therefore demons. So Kirtananda, he says, well, I thought in Krishna consciousness we're supposed to see Krishna in everyone. And Prabhupada says, well, yes, Krishna is also in the heart of the demon. But unless you distinguish between demons and devotees, you can't progress in Krishna consciousness. So that shut me up and made me think about it in a different way. So on the one hand, all of us are here in the material world because we chose to turn our backs on Krishna. So we wanted to enjoy and control our lives in separation from God. So therefore we manifested this physical body and mind so we could pretend that everything in this life should center around me. That's the main illusion. So basically we're all demons. Hello, we might think I'm free from all these things, but we're conditioned souls. That means we're also have demonic propensities in ourselves. This sense that we live in the notion that we're the center of everything. So Prabhupada is clarifying here that the only difference between a demon and a devotee is that a devotee at least is trying to reawaken their forgotten love. They may not be doing it perfectly. We should say we may not be doing it perfectly. Not us and them. We may not be doing it perfectly. But at least they are trying to overcome, at least we are trying to overcome this notion of being the most important person in the room. And that is the ongoing struggle that we all have. Because we have developed this habit of thinking of ourselves as the center of everything. Basically, we're narcissists by conditioning. We grew up in a demoniac society and a demoniac family. So we are demons. And Prabhupada had us sing this Nishinga prayers because he said you'll come from families of demons, like Prahlad Maharaj, who had to, in the midst of all of that, surrender to Krishna and chant his holy name. So on the other hand, a demon is not at all aware. They're not thinking, well, I'm a demon. At least there's an awareness that, okay, I've fallen into this ignorant consciousness. Let me make a little attempt to try and awaken myself to the love of God. But a person who's completely in ignorance of that is still in that illusion that they're the most important person in the room. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that in the past, the Lord sometimes uses weapons to defeat the demoniac. Like in the Krishna book, we see how Krishna kills so many demons. But in his incarnation of Lord Caitanya, his beauty is his weapon. And this is a wonderful thing when you think of how we can follow this example of Krishna to try and inspire and attract rather than try to force people to love Krishna. I mean, after all, Krishna doesn't force us. The Bhagavad Gita, he says, do what you want to do. I've told you everything. Now you have to make a choice. So in his Sri Caitanya Caritamrita Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he describes these demons that Krishna killed in his Vrindavan pastimes. And he describes them as representing the anartas, or the unwanted things that are obstacles in our devotional life. So literally, the word anarta means having an attitude or a behavior that prevents us from reaching our goal. So what is our goal? Why are we here? Is that we want to develop unconditional love for God. This is the whole reason why we're sitting here today, why we're at this festival. Because we want to glorify God by singing his holy name congregationally, together, in community. We can also sing or chant by ourselves. We can do that by ourselves. Lots of people do that by ourselves. In fact, we do that also by ourselves. But it's considered more powerful and more effective if we can sing his names together. Why is that? Because we might not be able to chant very purely. Today I might be sleepy. I might be grouchy. I might not have a taste for chanting. But in the assembly of devotees, maybe the guy sitting next to me has pure devotion, and today I get to benefit from hearing them chanting, and vice versa. Maybe on a good day I'm chanting purely, and the guy next to me is ready to fall asleep. And so we can help each other this way, and therefore it's really powerful to sing together. So naturally, if we engage in this process of chanting God's holy name together, we will develop gradually an attitude of compassion for all living beings. It's a natural outcome of our having a taste for chanting. And as our hearts become gradually purified, we're going to naturally want to share our transcendental joy with others. So we might in the beginning, want to do this all by ourselves, but as we develop a taste, then we will have the joy overflowing in such a way that we want to share it with others. So compassion is not just an attitude. That's kind of a misunderstanding, the idea of what is the difference between compassion and empathy and sympathy. Some people lump them all in together, but actually compassion is feeling the pain of another person with the desire to relieve it, to do something about it. It inspires you to do something active. Empathy is just about understanding another person without feeling the need to fix it for them. But compassion is what we're about, this attitude that we want to help relieve human suffering. And not even human suffering, we want to help relieve animal suffering as well. They are suffering so much, being oppressed by human exploitation. So this is the whole purpose of our movement here, is to chant the holy names and share it with others, which we consider to be a solution to all material suffering. So in his book, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained how the demons of Lord Krishna, he killed these demons in Vrindavan, but they represent these obstacles that we have to becoming pure devotees of Krishna. And if by Krishna's grace these demons can be killed in various ways that they manifest in our lives, then our progress in devotional service becomes guaranteed. So while I was preparing this class, I did a little research into these anartas, and often you read them through and you go, okay, the Putana's this and Trinivarta's that, and so I started, what do these words mean? That's really helpful when you're picking apart any of these texts and Prabhupada's purports, to get a dictionary out, what does that actually mean? It can get an awful lot of clarity if you look up the words and find out the meanings of these words. So he starts with Putana, who, those of you who know the story and you've read Krishna book, she disguised herself as a beautiful woman who was pretending that she wanted to be a nurse of Krishna. And the anarta she represents is this pseudo-guru or false teacher. Any of us can be a false teacher. You don't have to be a guru. Guru just means teacher. But someone who uses spiritual teachings to support their own agenda. And in this way, it kills the spirit or the essence of inspiring people to take shelter of Krishna. So any of us can misrepresent the philosophy and make ourselves the goal of the philosophy rather than connecting people with Krishna. Srila Prabhupada explains that when the devotee has an interest or will different from the interest of the Supreme Lord, their mentality is that of a separatist. When the so-called devotee desires material enjoyment without reference to the interest of the Supreme Lord, or he wants to become famous or opulent by utilizing the mercy or grace of the Supreme Lord, he is in the mode of passion. So this anarta of pretending to be a devotee means to represent oneself as a very religious person. Meanwhile, in the back, you have all kinds of sinful activities going on. And in this way, you're cheating the people into thinking you are a great devotee. So we need to all guard against this anarta. It can be very seductive. We are doing great things. Just because this mission and message is great doesn't mean we are great. We are delivering that message doesn't mean we are great. The message is great. So the second demon he has here is that Shakadasura, the cart demon. And this anarta that demon represents is carrying the burden of a cartload of old and bad habits, like lethargy. What does lethargy mean? It means to have no energy, no enthusiasm, to be really lazy. Sleep becomes the favorite activity, basically to be covered by tamas or ignorance. And vanity, which means to have excessive pride in one's appearance, qualities, abilities, so achievements, and so on, anything, being focused on how do I look to other people. Trinivarta, the whirlwind demon, represents having false pride that comes from material scholarship, which leads to bogus philosophies. This demon of false pride makes us think that we're going higher and higher, like the demon, whirlwind demon, he's going higher, getting above everyone else. But if we sincerely and humbly take shelter of hearing the glories of Krishna, serving his devotees and chanting his name, then Krishna will save us from this demon of pride. So many of these demons are based on pride. True knowledge leads to humility. So that's the difference. You can engage yourself in scholarship with the notion that, oh, I have so many degrees. Look how many degrees I have. I'm such a learned person. But true knowledge actually makes a person humble, because you realize, wow, the more I know, the more I see how awesome God is, and how vast the creation is, and so many facets, and I'm just a little particle of dust, and Krishna's created it all. So just being aware of that as a kind of a hook that can be an obstacle. The deliverance of Nalakuvera and Manigriva, the breaking of the twin Arjuna trees, represents having, again, arrogant pride that comes from a puffed up prestige, which is rooted in madness for wealth. Actually, education, wealth, and beauty can be the biggest of obstacles in our spiritual life if it is not used in Krishna's service. So in this case, having lots of money in this particular demon or this story can confuse our intelligence into thinking that we don't need to depend on Krishna. We don't have to do anything. I'm doing this all myself. We don't make the link that Krishna also can supply us with wealth, or he can take it away. And so whatever wealth we have, it's meant to be used in Krishna's service. Obviously, we need to take care of ourselves. That's a bona fide need for money. We need a certain amount to provide for our families. But this excessive greed that sometimes a person can get involved in can totally take us away from our real goal, which is love for Krishna. All of these are obstacles. So it doesn't mean that we can't use all these things for Krishna. It's just being aware, wait a minute, I'm getting way out there. I need to come back to the purpose, which is developing my love for Krishna. Then you have Vachasura, the calf demon. And he represents a childish type of mentality that gives rise to greed, that manifests in two broad tendencies. So the first case of the victim of greed, they're obsessed with amassing more and more wealth. It's tied to the one we just spoke about, and putting it away safely for a future need rather than looking to God to care for their needs. So me as an elder woman can be very anxious about, gosh, who's going to take care of me when I have a stroke? I mean, I think about it. People who know me know that I don't worry about that. I work. And when am I going to stop working? God, I'm an old lady, how is that going to happen? But not trusting that, well, I don't want to be a burden on people. And so you can really obsess about that. And instead of trusting, well, whatever happens, somehow or other, it doesn't take much to die. You can just lay down on a 2-foot and 6-foot bed and you're ready to die. You don't need a lot of money for that. You just need to lay down and do that thing. I've seen lots of people die. It doesn't cost any money, But if you want to be comfortable while you're dying, that's another thing. So it's very complex, but it's all tied to, again, security, somehow thinking I can control and become secure by myself. And there's just nothing that can protect us. Prabhupada says that. Your family members are fallible soldiers. A lot of times people think, oh, gosh, I need to, if I get married, then I will be protected and provided. Yeah, right. Well, until the husband gets stroke and he can't do anything, now you're taking care of them. So to think that there's anybody in this world, parents can't protect their kids either. That's also an illusion. Parents are neurotically, well, we do that. Yeah, you can do that, and we need to do that, but the ultimate issue, anything can happen while they're sitting on your lap. So, being aware of who's really in control is super important. As I've gotten older, I've realized that. There's just nothing. There's no other shelter. And when you are dying, that's the only thing that goes with you is the holy name. Bakasura, stork demon, represents being duplicitous, deceptive, misleading others through lies like advertising yourself that you have more skills or credentials than you actually have. That's an ethical principle in my profession that you better not, if you have this much credential, now advertise yourself as something more than that. You can get legally in trouble, but it also it seduces people into trusting you when you don't have the skills or the wisdom to be able to guide them. So you can hurt people that way. Aghasura, the snake demon, represents cruelty and violence. And we all know what physical violence is, beating people, hitting them, punching them, slapping them, smothering them, threatening them, burning them, all those things. Throwing things at people, hurting people, killing pets, all that stuff. But then there's something called emotional violence, emotional abuse. And that includes anything from verbal abuse, constant criticism of other people, other more subtle tactics like gaslighting, intimidation, manipulating people. This abuse occurs when someone uses words or actions that try to control another person to keep them afraid, or to keep them isolated, or to destroy their self-esteem. We need to be really careful about that, especially in community. We may not be aware of how our words, our eye-rolling, our behavior can hurt and exclude other people in a subtle way. And that's violence. Brahma Vimohana pastime. Lord Brahma steals the cowherd boys and calves, which represents mundane activities and speculative scholasticism. Now, mundane activities are just focusing on survival things, worldly things. How do I eat? Where do I sleep? We can get really anxious about those things. How do I find a partner? How do I defend all that stuff after I got it? And so there's no harm in doing that. Obviously, we have to maintain our bodies, but if that's the only goal that we have in life, then Prabhupada likened us to animals. We can do those things. Obviously, we have to take care of ourselves so that we can do service. I have this so that principle. You think, okay, I'm doing that. I'm putting gas in the car so that I can do service with the car. I eat healthy food so that my body will run. I'm getting enough sleep so that. So self-care is not a bad thing, but you have to know the reason I'm doing that is so that I can serve Krishna better. So, but just to do that for what? For just to feel good. It's always good to feel good, but it's a constant demand just to feel good. We want to feel good so that we can serve Krishna. And scholasticism is the habit of sticking stubbornly to one specific method of teaching or learning. Sometimes teaching and learning styles are no longer really useful. Like how they used to do things in the boarding school, in the English boarding school, where the teacher goes around. I saw this in India when I was living in India. The kids, you have 100 kids in a classroom, and the teacher comes around. If they don't spell things right, they whack you on your hands with a stick. And I'm thinking, now, how does that get me to learn how to spell, that you're whacking me? Well, you don't spell it right, well, I'm going to whack you again. Well, that doesn't help me learn that way. So over time, teachers have learned, educators have learned, well, that doesn't work. Just whacking a person doesn't make a person wise. So, but that can be, you can get stuck on a thing. Well, that's the way it's always been done. We always have to do it that way because it's always been done. My granny did it that way, so I'm afraid to do something creative that might actually work better because we're sort of stuck in tradition. So sometimes we get too rigid in certain methods of preaching and teaching, and we need to be open a little bit more to creative and useful ways of teaching and preaching to others. And I see a lot of creativity going on in this community. I mean, Krishna Village is one example. It's kind of an amazing thing that we have hosting this enormous group of people that are here and there and everywhere. We're so grateful to have people to help us cutting vegetables and cleaning and all of that. We couldn't really function without them, so I'm really grateful. It's a great program. Dhenukasura, the ass demon, he represents gross materialistic intelligence that is ignorant of spiritual knowledge. This means to be absorbed in the kind of intelligence that is only focused on satisfying your physical survival needs. Well, that's pretty much 3 times we've said this when the demons are representing that same thing, just being focused on the material body and maintaining it. Kaliya, chastising serpent, the Kaliya serpent, represents brutality and treachery. We've talked about cruel habits. I'm aware of the time, so I want to be sure we're done by breakfast. Krishna is extinguishing the forest fire. This is a good one. Vaishnavas getting caught up in disagreements between Vaishnava communities and with other fellow Vaishnavas. Although it's natural for us to have difference of opinions and moods in our practice of bhakti, we have to be careful about becoming over-absorbed in arguing endlessly about these differences, because that will destroy our pursuit of bhakti. So we have to think, okay, why am I doing all of this? Is this an obstacle to my developing love of God? If it's not, cut it out. When in doubt, throw it out. Pralamba demon represents lusty inclinations, not just sex desire, but it's also the lust for fame, profit, and distinction. Wanting to have in fact, people can have an addiction to wanting to be seen, and an addiction to fame, an addiction to reputation. And if you don't give it to them, well, they're having a tantrum. And it's a lusty addiction. And there's other things, but sometimes we think, lust is just about sex. It's not. There's all kinds of things that we lust after. Second forest fire, I don't know this particular story, but it represents disturbance of religious principles and agitating the minds of people who are atheists. Well, we have this notion that it's offensive to preach to the faithless. So my other son says, well, he's a Kirtaniya. He stands on the Santa Monica Bridge every day of the week singing by himself with the kirtan. He's a kirtan person, kind of a born-again Krishna kind of person. And, sometimes it's a little over the top. You think, well, God, you really can't do that at a funeral. We just did our eulogies for my mom's funeral, recorded to send to America. And he wants to do his eulogy, but then bust into an Ayendra kirtan by himself on the camera to a bunch of Christians, a church full of Christians. And it may not be a very appropriate thing to do. These people have a different way of worshiping God. And, he's like, well, but, that's what we're supposed to do and all of that. But knowing when is too much and what's appropriate in every time, place, and circumstance is really important. And if people are not interested to know about Krishna, don't push it. We can sing, we can enjoy doing kirtan and sharing our philosophy, but gosh, to give people a break, if they're atheists, let them, it's a volunteer thing. Let them be inspired. Another one is Brahmanas performing sacrifice, that story where the Brahmanas would not give food to Krishna and Balaram, but their wives did. This is a real example of being proud of one's social status and feeling very self-righteous because we're Brahmins and we're doing all these rituals and, we don't have time for anybody else. Overcoming the pride of Indra represents worshiping demigods and the tendency to think I'm supreme. And sometimes we think, demigods have to do with the Hindu tradition and that there's no other demigods around in this current day. We think of them as God's energies or something, but in fact, if you think of famous people today, like movie stars and politicians and stuff, they may have a lot of those 6 opulences. Krishna has these 6 opulences: fame, wealth, beauty, strength, renunciation, and knowledge. Well, gosh, I can think of some movie stars that have fame, wealth, beauty, and strength. At least that's 4 of 6 opulences. And people worship them. They have T-shirts and bumper stickers and, you've seen it, And then you may have somebody who's got knowledge and renunciation and maybe some strength, beauty, but no wealth, So these are all really seductive, and people do worship those kind of people. You see somebody who's powerful and beautiful. Maybe if I get close to them, it'll rub off. There's kind of that frenzy. So there's lots of demigod worship going around. Just look around you, singers and, various famous people. Maharaj captured Varuna represents thinking that spiritual life can be enhanced by intoxication. We know that, some Shaivites, they will enhance their meditation by marijuana and intoxication. And then you have, it's very popular today to do ayahuasca. I don't know if you know what that is. It's kind of a South American kind of a drink, and you sort of hallucinate, and you're supposed to have a huge transformative experience and solve all your problems, and I'm not sure I never did it, so I don't know if it works. But, I mean, anyway, it's pretty transformative for me to chant Hare Krishna. And then you have Nanda Maharaj, who swallowed by a snake, representing the rescuing the truth of Krishna consciousness from being swallowed by impersonalists. And so that's not to say that God is not also light and energy and living force. That's true. But to focus on that without understanding what's the source of that the emanation, the light, the energy, the living force is the emanation of the person, God, rather than the other way around. Often people will say, no, God is just a mystery. He's just energy, and that we fabricate a God as a person because we're projecting this anthropomorphic idea that we can't imagine, anything else but a person. But no, it's the other way around. God is a person, and the reason we're shaped the way we are is because we are made in the image of God in the way. 2 eyes to him, there's a form there. A Sankachuda killing the conch demon, getting the jewel that was stolen by him represents the anartha of fame and sensuous enjoyment, another one of those fame ones. And then we got 2 more. Aristasura represents pride arising from indulging in false religions. We've got lots of those going around. And then Keshi, horse demon, is I'm a great devotee and spiritual master. We've talked about that. Vyomasura represents the anartha of associating with thieves and other rascals who pretend to be authentic or maybe even incarnations of God. And I think there have been people, even in modern times, who promote themselves. I've seen at least one person in Australia on YouTube who says, I'm an reincarnation of Jesus, and he's got a huge following here in Australia. And people believe it. So just to end up, because I know we have to do a breakfast. So the solution to these obstacles is always to chant in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and giving all respect to others. Most of those anarthas are just about being proud, and being arrogant, being full of oneself. And the antidote is just to be humble. And I like to couple humility with honesty, because often if you're humble, you may enable abuse or exploitation. If you temper humility with honesty, then you also have some level of critical thinking, that you're not blind following. If you're honest but you're not humble, you're likely to say things that may hurt people. So that everything, even confronting people with challenging things, has to be done in an attitude of humility. And we see Maharaj Nanda, when Krishna was being so naughty, driving the community crazy by stealing the butter and having monkeys poop all over everything. I mean, he really was hard to tolerate in the community. And Nanda Maharaj, after everybody comes to him and says, look, you got to do something with your kid there. He's driving us crazy. He sat him down and he said, look, I love you. You are my beloved son, and I really hate to have to chastise you here right now. It's really not my thing. And but I'm going to have to tie you up so that you don't, go into people's houses and steal their butter and release the monkeys. But he did that out of love, and that's the art. How do I speak my truth in a way that doesn't, that actually communicates care? That's not easy to do because our emotions get all mixed up in that. So my final word is that the devotee and the demon is in our own heart. And by chanting Hare Krishna with humility and sincerity, those demons will be destroyed. That's how Krishna kills the demon, who is in us and in all other living beings. I'm going to stop here because I know it's time. We have 5 minutes. Does anybody have a reflection, something they resonated with, they'd like to share, question that I might not be able to answer? Anything? Yeah. Well, we're the demons. We're it. Oh, I guess as soon as you kill one, a new one takes birth. I think it's a rotating program. I can't answer that, and I have no idea why. We're demons still today. I guess there are big demons and little demons. I don't know. Yeah. That's a good answer. I don't know. I mean, that's a open question. Anything else? You had your hand up, somebody? Yeah, you in the back. Are you way in the back? Yeah, the green. You with a green T-shirt on. Yeah. Probably not what you're talking about, but maybe someone else can. Can you tell the story? You want to elaborate on what you're talking about? I'd have to look. I don't know. I didn't remember, but it would make sense and be certainly an obstacle. There's so many obstacles to devotional life. But yeah. So what do you want to say about envy? It's certainly an obstacle, whether it's written here in this description or not. What do you want to say about envy? That's a big one. In fact, it's the only thing that's not in the spiritual world is envy. It's the only emotion that you can't use for Krishna is envy. Huh? Okay. Yeah, it's a different thing, right? Then it's a little different thing, to be. Envy in that sense is the highest form of flattery. Or somebody wants to imitate you, that's a different thing. In fact, if you study emotions, there's a healthy way to use them in Krishna service, and then there's an unhealthy way. So, yeah, it depends on what kind of envy you're talking about. Anything else? You want to say more about envy? No. I think everybody's ready for breakfast. Do you want to say something more? No? Okay. Anything else? I think we got 2 minutes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
We were talking about compassion to the demons and the hero of the demons. Mentality is there, and basic characteristic of human instinct is still there. And when you are approaching a non-devotee or people who are interested, but they are not yet into standing or yet into what consciousness.
Right. Yes.
Into, so how do we manage that thing? So at least the compassion and the humility and everything is still in the books, and our demonic, our human instinct acts and impose Krishna on the people. So is it the right way to do it? Or
Well, my experience is you have to first do a whole lot of listening before you now start to shoving philosophy in people's throats. You need to listen and find out where they connect, where you can connect. Not everybody's in the same place in their readiness for taking Krishna. Maybe it's just prasadam and kirtan. Maybe that's what they will do their whole life before they're ready to even open Bhagavad Gita. And that's okay too, right? And we are not capable of understanding how best, to engage someone unless we get to know them. It really requires entering into a relationship with people, not seeing them as somebody that we are going to, I don't know what, convert, recruit. What are you thinking? We're sharing. That's a different thing, to share if people are interested. But they may not be ready to hear. That's all right too. It's in their own time. And it's not 0 to 100 overnight. Did you become a devotee from 0 to 100 overnight? No, it's a lifetime. It's a very gradual process. It takes 50 years to chant without offense. Just think about how long that is. It's a lifetime. So now you go to people who are just like first time hearing the holy name and having prasadam, and now there's an expectation that they should be able to do better than you. That's kind of self-righteous. We have to be so careful about that. And it is a tendency of Brahmins. It's written in the scripture in Kali Yuga that Brahmins tend to be quite self-righteous about themselves. And if you think you're a Brahmin, that's even worse, because we're all Sudras in Kali Yuga. So now I put a tilak on, I put a kurta on, do a little puja, wave a little incense. Now I'm a Brahmin. Not so much. Brahmin's much more than just being able to do puja. It has to be a person who has really a thirst and a sustenance for study, pouring over these scriptures, deeply understanding, loving to write, loving to read. How many of us really are Brahmins? Not many. Not many. Yeah. Okay, breakfast. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.